Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. This is Friday, June 28th, 2019. My name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow, and I am here to bring you not only questions and answers in the community, but the thought process, the journey of discovery, the learning process, just double checking, making sure audio's working, broadcasting's happening, everything looks good. The journey of discovery, the exploration that goes on to take those skills to your organization and be a more effective ServiceNow administrator and developer. That's the goal. Let's see what we can do today. If you are joining me on YouTube, thank you very much. You can subscribe with the link right there and hopefully get a notification that looks something like this. Yep, there it is. Both on Twitch, and Craig has completed a task. We don't need to know about that. It's going to be a lovely day. And I think Twitch is in there somewhere too. Not at the moment. So you get the idea of what's going on. Get your notifications. Click that little bell icon. Subscribe, and you will be all set. If you find something helpful in this video, something you've learned, go ahead and click the like button and let other people know that there's something of interest in this video, and that is always appreciated. If you're watching this on the community, I take this video and put it back into the community with the links we talked about, with a link to GitHub, source control. Any code that we write today will be available there. I'll get that link to you in just a minute, but it will also be in the description. Everything's all contained. You go to the community and you look for video, community live stream, blah, blah, blah. And it will be there. You can also click the helpful link there. Excuse me, tickle in the throat. All right. Thank goodness for mute buttons. Good morning to Shane. Good morning to John. Good morning to Carolyn. Good morning to Scott. Everybody's chiming in. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me live today. That's why it is the community live stream. I'm streaming this live. This is not recorded. This is not rehearsed. This is purely whatever comes to me in the last 24 hours or since I did the last episode. Try to do this when I'm at home, when I'm healthy, when I'm available, and when priorities don't smash my schedule all to heck. So it is 6 a.m. here. We do this at 1 p.m. UTC, whatever time that is in your area. You can plan accordingly and join us. Good morning, Anand. We have some new names in here. See if I can read these. They're a little far away from me. I got to make the font bigger or something. Good morning, Jaroslav. I hope that's correct. Good to see you. And here's that herbal tea to stave off any more tickles in the throat. All right, we also do this on Twitch, where you can find that over at twitch.tv/NOWCommunity. Keeps the videos around for a couple of weeks, and YouTube keeps them around forever. I am working on a way. Let me know, just a quick poll in the chat, if you would find it useful for this to also be available via podcast. I'm looking into that. The technology exists. If it doesn't, I will write it. So you can take this video with you if you happen to be asleep right now. I know it's quite late in Australia, but you wake up in the morning and there's the video on your podcatching client of whatever you're using. Maybe it's iTunes, or Apple Podcasts. Forgot they changed the name this month officially. Maybe it's Pocket Casts on an Android device like I use. Would that be helpful? I'm old school, don't do podcasts. Some people like to take this right from YouTube. That's fine. Or find it in the community or Twitch. Some people do podcasts. Just looking to see if people would find it useful for another channel for that. So I'm probably going to invest the time and rewrite that old podcast app as a scoped app anyway. There's a new spoke coming out for Integration Hub that could actually help me with that. I've just got to get a few bits and pieces. There could be times when it would be useful. All right, John says, thank you very much. Let's continue on with the pre-roll. You can chime in your questions and answers there. If you've got an opinion and you're watching this later, you're not watching it live, go ahead and put your comment either on the community or on YouTube, and I'll find it there. I appreciate that. So just curious if anybody would enjoy that. Hey, if even it's just 2 or 3 people, I'll do it. It's that useful. It would be a fairly large file, though. Keep in mind that each one of these is about an hour long at HD. It's a couple of gig. It's not anything to mess with. So you're going to need some storage if you're going to be, say, stockpiling a week of these. All right. So your call. I could look at reducing the video size if you're watching it on a mobile device. But hey, if you're watching HD, if I scale it down and you're watching it on, say, a 14-inch tablet, it's going to look pretty crummy. You won't be able to read what's on the screen. So that's why I capture it in HD, so you can get all those details and see what you're seeing. Your podcast would be much better than most of the options we get on airplanes. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Where are we going? We did Twitch. Now we go on to the community. If you've got a question about ServiceNow, question, issue, something you want to get out there, please post that in the community. If you ask me a question in the chat, I may not answer it because I'm the only resource available and it might not even be my area of expertise. By posting it in the community, you can reach the people with that expertise and have a record of it. Because it's not real easy to go scrubbing through YouTube videos going, where was that system property Chuck mentioned? If it's in the community and I answer it or somebody else answers, you go, I'm going to search for, I remember they were talking about table layout or something, and there's the property or attribute or some obscure piece of information. You can always search for it much, much easier in the community. So there's a system of record, there's a trace of the conversation, and other people can benefit from it. So let's do that. Let's use the community for what it's best at, and we'll be there in just a minute. So stick that in community.servicenow.com. We also have, skipping over that, developer site. Developer.servicenow.com is where you can get free personal developer instance, free learning plans, meetup information. We just had a Phoenix developer meetup last night, had a great time talking about what everybody learned. But think about half the people there went to Knowledge 19, so we shared experiences, what we liked, there was even some good feedback on things we can improve next year. So I'll be taking that back to our events team. Love to hear that kind of stuff. We took apart the Jeopardy game. We played a game, and then we took it apart. So showed the service portal widgets and script includes and all that stuff that happens on the back end to make that happen. Of course, you can find that on Share and go download it and tear it apart yourself if you're curious. So there's only one Jeopardy game that I'm aware of on ServiceNow. What do we got? Morning, Chuck. Will you have another tech now about more advanced flow designer and script action and complex routing using decision tables? Potentially, Chad. It's not on the schedule yet. Decision tables are new in Madrid. We do have an online lab. I have to remember what the number is. If you go to the developer portal, see if I can find that for you right now. I did not intend to hit that. But if you go to the developer portal and take the home part off of the URL and put on event Knowledge 19. Okay. There is, see if I can remember the number, CCW0567. Is that the one I did with Jimmy? Take a no-code path to workflow automation. Yes. Look for this. There is a lab guide. Now, it is built on an application that already exists, but it can get you the information about, if I look real hard, I might even be able to find the update set if you wanted to load that application and continue this exercise. But it goes into using decision trees, decision tables, that kind of stuff. So will I have a tech now on it? I love the idea. I'm going to jot that down, except my notebook's a little out of arm's reach right now. So let me put it here. Can't get it. I will put a note up here. Tech now, more flow designer stuff. So we are booked out through Q4 on that. Good question, though. Appreciate it. Yes, right now I don't know how to do podcasts, but plan to learn over the 4th. When the green screen is not up, I don't know if you've seen on Live Coding Happy Hour sometimes, there is a sign back that says Podcasting for Dummies. The 3rd edition is out. So if you want to learn more about creating a podcast, I co-authored the book on that. Not trying to ring my own bell or anything on that one, but just if you're looking to do that, if you want to consume them, much, much easier. Shane says, Chuck is greater than Aquaman. I enjoyed Aquaman. I thought it was fun. I actually watched that on a plane. I forgot which trip it was. Is ATF recommended for QA team to us as the main testing tool. Functional testing, yes, you will gain from doing ATF, both for QA as you're putting a release through, or we're not even done with the pre-roll and I'm answering questions as they come up. That's fine. This is totally unscripted. But you will also benefit from having those tests available when you do your ServiceNow upgrades. If you're going from Madrid to New York, for example, hey, I've already got all these tests. Let's run them to make sure that my applications function in New York. And it greatly, greatly reduces your upgrade time. So, of course, you can take advantage of whatever those latest features are in New York. Or if you're going from Kingston to Madrid. So you can take advantage of that. Whenever possible, create those ATF tests. Alrighty. Carol's got the book. Awesome. I think I saw, was it Knowledge? I know somebody at Sales Kickoff in January brought me a book to sign. And I think there was one at Knowledge too. So it's kind of funny when the worlds collide like that. Where are we going? We did the developer portal. One of the other things you can get out there is meetups, of course. If you go to meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow Dev Program, there are 51 chapters around the world. Look for one in your area. I was just talking to somebody this week from St. Louis, Missouri. There is not one there yet, but I said, hey, reach out to us and we could help get one started for you. Help you organize, get you some content, and then all you need to do is pick a place and a time, and we can market to those people to get them to show up. And you can geek out with the developers like we did in Phoenix last night. There are lots of them already around, so check it out. Sign up, at least get in your area so you know when they're going to happen, get those announcements, and you'll have a lot of fun with that. Where else were we going? That was meetups. Did that. Where I'm looking at my hotkeys going, what do I push next? We did that webinar, so don't want to do that. The next one. The next Tech Now is July 30th. We'll be talking about ATF, some of the new advanced features that came out in Madrid. I'm working on getting the graphic and everything squared away for that. So just had a good conference call with the presenter. I will not be presenting it. Craig will not be presenting. Stacy will not be presenting. We have a guest presenter on ATF around parameterized tests. So you can take the same test. Let's go back to this tab. Take the same test and use it on, say, different personas or different CIs and say, run the same test, but run it multiple times with different parameters in place. And you may want to see it pass in some cases. You may want to see it fail in some cases. So that's how your test should go. Say, look, if I put this person in, they should not have access to this. Let's verify they don't. Okay, that could be a valid test. So parameterized tests, the other half of that is going to be custom UI. So if you've done a UI page, for example, or we already support Service Portal, but custom UI pages, you can now run a test around that. It's a little more involved because you got to get the elements off the page and then do a little bit of definition before you get your test built. But that's coming July 30th. We snuck in a special one on August 6th, which happens to be my oldest daughter's birthday. And if you look under the developer portal, under Learn Documentation. Oh man, where's my cursor thing? This thing must have rebooted. My cursor's off. Hold on. I can't deal with this. Let's turn the mouse locator back on. Okay. Turn mouse locator on. Thank you. If you look under Learn Documentation, down at the bottom, what's currently the bottom of the page, is a new section called Citizen Developer Application Development. Sounds a bit redundant, but it's not. And walks you through the stages of how to build an application. This is not just for citizen developers, for anybody getting started with ServiceNow development. Great talk about the data model and business logic, very conceptual. We're going to look at putting that into a hands-on, blending this with the hands-on as we go forward. So I'm working on that material right now. That's one of the things I'm doing. So this was produced by a coworker named Brad Tilton. You probably know him from the community. His name is like right there in third place. There's Brad. Brad now works at ServiceNow, used to be a partner. So looking forward to that. on August 6th. We'll be talking to Brad. He should have one, if not two more of those guides out by that time for pro code developers, for, we've got the technical best practices out there. So this goes a little more into the conceptual, hey, if you're a pro code developer, here's the things you want to know about when you're building an application on ServiceNow. So you can combine these two and get the best of all worlds. One platform, no code to pro code, that rocks, at least in my book. Brad's working diligently on that. I get to see his work periodically to do a quick proof, and very, very looking forward to that. So, well, there's a lot of stuff happening. It boggles the mind sometimes. Where else were we going? We did that. We did a webinar. We talked about that. August 20th is the New York platform features. So I'm gathering up all the chickens for that so I can put them in the hen house and present them to you in a reasonable fashion. So I've got hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of video to watch that I need to consolidate and put into a presentable format. That's August 20th. I should just show the list up here of what we're doing, a calendar of events, but I'll get that. First, we got to get some other things out of the way. Let's talk about, we did that. Any code that we write today? Where is it? The GitHub thing. GitHub repo, there is a GitHub repo. Any script that we write, I will put out on this GitHub repo in a dated folder, 2019-06-28, because this is the 28th of June. Yes, still the 28th? Want to make sure I'm saying that right. So I've been known to be wrong. It is the 28th of June. If there's script we write, it will be found there. And there will be a link in the description on YouTube. There will be a link in the community post directly to that folder. But you can always use this one to get to the top level. It's getting a bit full. I might have to divide these up by year or something. So that's where we are. Let's get into the community. As I mentioned, community.servicenow.com. And I spent a few minutes before the cameras were rolling doing some community work, pulling out what might be interesting articles, gathering up some ideas, and let's start with one or two questions here, see what we get. So, software asset management, professional plugin activated. This is in the developer community, so I'm curious. I'm not big on software asset management. It is something I have not dealt with yet. ServiceNow personal activated software asset management plugin in my instance with data. Under software asset overview and Office 365 and Adobe Cloud dashboard, all numbers are 0. Attached screenshot. With the plugins, Performance Analytics Content Pack, SAMP is also active. It says in Docs, Software Publisher Pack should be active, but couldn't find from where I need to make active. This is a plugin question, and I really don't know. Should probably have more of a, rather than developer community, probably instance help would have been a better place for this. So make sure when you post your community articles that they go into the proper community. If you're having problems with your personal developer instance, put that into the instance help. It even says right on the developer, when you go to manage instance, it says, are you having problems? Request help from the community or report a problem from your instance. It will take you to a brand new fresh post in the right place and say, here's a whole bunch of places that you can look. I don't want to look in the community, but you can post it there. How to push glideRecord values to an array in a script include and get an array of glideRecord values retrieved in a client script. That would be pretty easy, actually. So I'm trying to get an array of values, sysid, from the sysuser table. These are query based on location information. My client script in Ajax does a glide Ajax of incident utils 1. The function name is getLocationUsers. The parameter they're passing in is the customer location, which comes from a uLocation field, and go. Okay, then they'll parse out the answer in a little bit. My script include, there's getUsers function. Let's go and get the parameter for that. And query glideRecord, where location is that. I'm assuming this is still a sysid. They do their query. They do the next. Good variable name, user gr. Love it. Here is the key problem. How many people have been around this episode, this community live stream long enough to spot that in a heartbeat? Okay, then they're going to return a stringified version of this. That's fine. But what you really need to do is fix that. That is because glideRecord is just a pointer to whatever the current record is, you're saving the last value over and over and over because that's what the pointer points to. So this is actually a very, very easy thing to fix. I wish the indentation was on here. Okay. I will show you an example of what this looks like in a minute. I've done this 100 times myself. So you need to change the user gr.sysid to this. And I'm going to put this in a little code block. User, let's just post the whole code in there. I'm going to give them some free indentation because I can't do it. That's all right. So it should be get value. Get value, get value, get value. If Steve from Sweden was here, he knows that. Okay, so indent a little, indent a little, indent a little, indent a little. And I will go into my longer version in just a minute. I didn't even bother finish reading that. Let's explore that. Paste that in. A better way would be to use get unique value. Muhahaha. I'm a recent convert. What I'm getting is object, not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I expect an array of sysids in the sysuser table. First, make sure your script include is working before you start tacking on all the other stuff. So what I would do in this case is, where's my instance? My instance is way over here. Let's write a little script. So into Visual Studio Code we go. Close that and show you an example of what they just did. I'm going to take out the function part. So, and I'm going to pass in a parameter of locations rather than locations. Well, let's go get a location. We'll just hard code it for this example. And I go to user administration, locations. I don't know where any of these people live, so this could end badly. There's 426 locations and about 550 people. So let's go find a user that actually has a location. Maybe we can even group by location. That would be fun. And then we can find something that's got a couple of people in it. So let's take, where's the location field? Location's already on there. How happy for me. And group by location. I'm just making sure my data will produce something when I script. There's 50 empties. There's 9 in 13308 Midland Road, Poway, California. There's 10 in Sydney. So let's take that and let's copy the query. I just really cheated on that one, didn't I? And let's do add encoded query just so I can get around this quicker. So now I don't need this line. I'm going to get a bunch of users and use their code. And rather than return, because I'm not in a function at this point, I'm going to do a gsinfo json.stringify custom inc loc users. And I like to also, it's an array of sysids. So really we don't need that. We want, let's print a new line, then take this array and print it out, joined by more new lines. Okay, makes the array a little more readable. You'll see this in a sec. So take this example. Let's run it through scripts background. There it is. And we get all the same sysid. Oh, that's a bummer, right? Gee, what happened? Exactly what I said happened. You're taking and saving the value of what the pointer is. Meanwhile, the pointer's moving on and you've saved references. When it's done, it's got the last sysid. This is the last one on the list. Mind this, BE5D2A. Okay. That's what's stored in that and you're saying, oh, I have a whole bunch of pointers. I'm looking at that same thing 10 times. If you don't understand pointers, don't worry about it. Just understand that if you see that, change this to either one of two things. If you're looking for sysids, then get unique value will get you that information. Okay. Oh, look, there's BE5D2A, but it doesn't show up anywhere else. I've got all the unique values. The way that I just did it in this one, for that example, is a little more universal. Oops, let's not destroy the rest of the statement. Is get value of the specific field. You may in fact want something else besides a sysid. Same result, but using get value or get unique value will get you those. That copies the value. Okay. Remember, this is, always remember, even if you're dot walking here like this, using a dotted notation, sysid is an object, not a value. It walks like a string, it talks like a string, it smells like a string. It's not a string, it's an object. If you want the value of that object, you use a getter and setter. So let's put back what I just had, and it copies the value into this array space. Key important thing when dealing with arrays and sysids. So that is the important part. There was something else I was going to talk about on this topic, and I don't remember what that is. Maybe if I look here, I'll remember. Nope. Okay. I've got a hopefully simple question in a catalog client script. How do I set the focus on a control? You can do a gform.getControl, and I believe there's a method in there. I haven't looked in a while. Search the community. I know that's been asked before. Not just a catalog client script, but any client script should work on that. Oh, that's hot. What was the other thing I was looking for? Okay, common mistake, don't make it. Darn it, there was something else. I don't remember what it was. I thought it had to do with objects. Never mind. We'll move on. Okay. Maybe it'll come up to me when I look at this. Test it. Yeah, I would test the heck out of this before going in here. So you can do the following below. Don't do toString. That was the other thing. Thank you. Don't do toString. ToString is for converting a data type when you don't have a getter and setter. Okay, I've got a number. Number doesn't have a get value. Use toString to convert a number to a string. That's what it's for. If you're dot walking, you can't put a get value at the end. So if I say user gr dot location dot department dot manager dot something, it's like, I can't stick a get value and stick a field in there. So put a toString on that. That's my exception to using toString instead of get value. Okay. I'm going to respond back, not to be a total pedantic person. I'm trying not to use explicatives here. Okay. I recommend only using toString when a getter isn't available. In this case, you can use either get value, sysid, or get unique value to get the sysid. The only time, somehow I hit caps lock. The only time you should use toString is, let's make that a little bigger, when you don't have access to a getter like get value. And this would be when you dot walk past the first level property, object. Example, user gr dot location dot department dot, here, I'll do it this way, user gr dot manager dot toString. You want your manager, sysid. There's no get value on the end of that. So toString makes the most sense. Right? Don't cheat out. The other one I've also seen is where they do a plus and an empty quotes to force it to a string. It's effectively the same as a toString. You've got a get value method in there. Use it for what it's worth. Use the APIs. If they're there, use them. That way you don't have to rely on anything hanky that JavaScript might do. I have a slight opinion about that. A couple of things in the inbox. Let's take a quick look. John G says, Chuck, have you ever considered renaming these live sessions to what the topics are covered after it's over? Random thoughts. Yes, I have given some thought, but the topics are random. Yeah, these are totally random thoughts. They're all over, totally unscripted. I have thought of calling it open office hours, but that would imply that I'm responding only to the chat, when in fact I want to direct people to the community and use it for what it's for. That is, we had a question, how to push glideRecord values. That's the response we just got. From Imran on the toString, which we just responded to. Had a discussion earlier about, oh, here's John doing a response to LG2. So we need to prevent users from entering double quotes and the enter key in a multi-line text field, such as comments. We've created an on-change client script, but the alert displays even if there's no double quote in the new line field. So we've tried using an example from another post, and there's their client script looking for, oh, you got to backslash that quote if I'm not mistaken. I missed that. My suggestion was there is a dictionary attribute. It's not documented. If it's a field, I don't know if this works on a variable. It's called is multi-text equals false. And I think I showed that on this show before too. Let's take a quick look at how that works. I have my wonderful CLS persons, and let's go put a field on there. So get to my CLS, what was it, 528. This app is now a month old. And configure the form, we'll do form designer for whatever reason. Let's create a new field type of string, put that down here, and we'll make it a large string. Anything under 255 characters will show up as a single line of text. I think we talked about this before. So let's call this, description. Well, in his case, comments. The field name, comments. Remember, the label can be translated, the name cannot. The max length, it defaults to 40, so let's just start it with 40. And I'll go through some stuff here. Let's leave it there. So when you put a 40 character string in a full width like this, redraw the form, we're going to play around with string fields today. I type blah, 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 blah. It stops at 40 characters. It goes, you're done. So it's a long field. You don't really need 40 character fields in a full width. I wouldn't put them here. I'd put them up between the splits. If we go and modify that, let's go back to Form Designer. Remember, you can always make a field larger, but don't make it smaller. And say 100, such as short description. Update that and save it. Reload it. Reload the form. I'm working on it. Reload the form. Yes, you made some changes. Now I can go blah de blah 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 blah, and of course it stops at 100. Still a little long, but better. Okay, I can get a lot of characters in there. If I go all the way up to 255. I think that was the limit, not 254. I think it's 255. Before it renders it and goes, this is a lot of text. You probably want a long field. Okay, let's go blah de blah 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 blah. Copy paste. Paste, 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 paste. It won't fit. There's 255 characters. You're going to have to trust me on this one. Okay, that looks like about 255. When you switch that to 256, this is where it goes to a multi-line display. So let's save that. And it goes, hey, it's 256. I can now see all of those characters in there. Okay, and I can put in actually more. It changes the basic underlying data type in the database. What happens if I type more than 256? Doesn't care. I used to think this was 1,000 because when you make your field descriptions and form layout, it says, do you want like small, medium, large, and there's 1,000, there's 4,000. Frankly, I haven't seen a difference. Once you get past 256, seems to save everything just fine. But if you really want to tell somebody this is a really large field, you can keep typing all day. So his question was, what if I don't want to allow them to use that character in this field? Now, I haven't tested with journal fields, but for a string field, what you could do is say, let's start with nothing, save that, and go to that dictionary attribute that I said. Configure dictionary. And by default, I don't think this is even going to show up on the attributes. Attributes, new, let's find multi. It doesn't exist in here. Won't let me find that. So even if I just look for is selective, nope. So whenever I can't find it in the list there, and I know it exists because Chuck told me in a community article, I go to advanced view and it shows the old, before there was a related list, this is the way you did dictionary attributes, was this attributes field. However, it's human error prone. So don't use this unless you have to. Is multi-text equals false. Okay, don't let it render as multi-text. When you save that, it keeps the related list in sync, and suddenly is multi-text is now available down here. Okay. Weird, huh? So there are ways to get attributes if you don't have them available to you. If we go back to this person's field, pick my dad's name, it's still a very long field, but I cannot enter. I can't put in new lines. So I don't need to worry about parsing them out or warning them because you can't do it. You can still put in whatever long text you want on and on. Oh, apparently it stops at whatever that is, 255? Didn't know that, okay? Still learning. That looks like about 255. It's using a different widget to display this field, and it will stop at 255. For a comment, I would think that's enough. Now it's just a matter of, hey, did you put in quotes? That's an easy way to do an index of. And say, if you have an index of, you put it in your client script, done. So that's where that discussion came from and went. Let's see. Thanks, Chuck. The attribute seems to work fine, but please forgive the ignorance. It's Friday. Would the replace be on a business rule or submit or insert? I did try that before. Okay, you could. I would do, if you want to do this in a client script, you could do index of. You could use JavaScript index of to determine if a quote exists. Something like this untested code. I'm going to write it over here just so I can see it a little bit better. So you could say var comment equals gform dot get value. Look, get value. U underscore comment. And then if comment dot index of, and I would put a quote there, or you may have to backslash that, of quote greater than or equal to 0. Now, the reason it does greater than or equal to 0 is because it returns the position starting at 0. Okay, alert, hey, there is a quote here. Not good. If it doesn't find it, it returns a -1. That's not a valid position in the string. All strings are going to start, like all arrays, they start at 0 and start counting up. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you just said greater than 0 and somebody put a quote at the beginning and said, quote, hello world, unquote, you'd actually get 2 results. But the first one would say, hey, I found that at 0. So you got to make sure you do greater than or equal to 0. So let's put that in there. And that. And I will put a footnote on the index of thing. Footnote down here below. Footnote on the dictionary attribute. Make that a little bigger. Bigger, bigger. People on the screen want to see it. On the dictionary attribute, it caps the string limit at 255. But for a comment, that's still a lot. I'll put 255 characters. There we are. Reply. I like to keep my scripts as simple as possible. If I can avoid regular expressions, I do. There's a really old phrase from the internet. It said, I used to have a problem. I tried to solve it with a regular expression. Now I have 2 problems. Okay, don't overcomplexify your scripts. If you stick with the easiest stuff you can. Replace would be if I wanted to pull it out. If I didn't want to tell anybody and I just put in a business rule and said, you used to have quotes, now you don't. If I want to alert them in a client script and go, hey, yeah, you probably don't want to do this. Okay. The alert is just going to put up a message. Obviously, you want to put some sort of abort equals true somewhere in there. Johan was talking about CMDB. He was using a REST API to put things into the CMDB table, but he only had the display values on the third-party system. He didn't have the sysids. And I want to put this into, the third floor printer thing, and he imports it into ServiceNow with the REST API by display name. I know of a query parameter. That's something on the URL. Query parameters are like this. If I look at just this one from the community, okay, it says ID equals community inbox. It's something to tell the application what to do. So there is one called sysparm underscore display underscore value. And I put this in here in a horribly formatted thing because my font is so large. But if you do sysparm display value true, it returns the display values of all fields. I don't know if this is going to work on an inbound table API to say, hey, I have this. Because usually the table API for the post. So I said, hey, give it a shot. I don't know. Thanks for your reply. I did try this one, but it didn't help. Just test it again with the REST API Explorer. I also tried the sysparm input display value equals true query parameter, but it seems like the parameter is only for the table API and not the CMDB instance API. I didn't realize there were 2 different APIs. Interestingly, let's go look at the REST API Explorer. I don't need to save these comments for my dad. They make no sense. So there's a CMDB API? There is. News to me. Okay. What does it do? CMDB instance API. You said instance, right? We're learning today. CMDB instance API. And you want to do a post. Create a record with associated relations. Create a relation for the post, patch, update the CI record. Let's see if we can create a record. Class name, sysparm field, sysparm relations, relation offset. You could add a query parameter. Let's see what it says about CMDB instance API. Over to the product documentation. Pop that in. See what we can all learn at the same time. I happen to be looking at Kingston, I believe. Performs create, read, update, and delete operations using existing CMDB tables. Only one record can be inserted, updated, deleted at a time. URL format. Supported request parameters. Just those 3. Display shows nowhere on this page. Darn. Okay, I thought he was using the table API. My mistake. Sorry about that. I thought you were using the table API and was unaware of the CMDB instance API until now. Good to know. Good to know. Sorry, there's no sysparm display value thingy for thingy. It's not a query parameter, it's more thingy for CMDB instance API. All right, that wasn't much help on that one. Bummer. A couple things I wanted to talk about before I got too far. The filter does not work when the URL is modified. Wanted to talk to you about a couple of things that were in this article that caught my eye. One is using the fixed query, sysparm fixed query. I don't know if you've used this before, but let's take something that has a few records in it. Oh, like users. Okay, let's go to user administration, and I want to filter all the people that have, well, let's say the location the same as this one. Show matching, and I get 17 records that have this location. But if I put this into a module, okay, let's take SHH Quadra 5 Bull Loco in Studio. I need Studio. Studio's over here. In Studio, in my CLS application, I want to make a new module. So I go to Create Application, Navigation, Module, and I say, whatever the location was, Brasilia. Okay, Brasilia users. And I'm going to put that under my CLS menu just for easy finding. We'll put that at a higher order somewhere. And I use the same link type list of records on the table users. I'm just making a module. You should be able to do this fairly easy down on sysuser. And my condition is going to look much like that. Location is that one, SHS Quadro Loco, whatever it is. So I go and make my module, and I refresh my menu, and I look for my CLS application, and says, here's my Brasilia users, and somebody says, that's nice, I can see all the users this way. And you say, no. I don't want you to be able to delete that. What you can do in your module is change that filter. So let's reload that. Copy the query and put this into a module. I don't know if you've done this or not. This is not as simple, but I can take this off of here. Pull that back a little bit so I can see the rest of that condition. Get rid of that and put it in here as sysparm fixed query equals, and then the actual query. Now, if I were really smart, I would put that as a percent 3D. Change the second equals, but it should work this way. Save that. And I don't know if I need the ampersand or not. I don't think so, because it's the only argument on there. Reload that. And when I go to CLS this time and click Brasilia users, it actually put up the query and totally threw up in my face. I do need an ampersand in there, don't I? Somebody was shouting at me when they were watching the video. Sometimes I mess up. Try it again. CLS. Brasilia users. And notice now, you can't click all or the arrow to get rid of part of this query. You can click this all you want because you still need the copy query. You could refresh the list doing this. If somebody was added to that location, you could get a refresh that way. But you cannot say, I want to see them all. This is a way of restricting the filter on that module. They said, okay, so I took this URL I will put it in my editor so you can see it easier. And notice that it has a couple of parts in here. There's sysparm query equals nothing. You got to learn to read these characters. 3D is equals, %26 is the ampersand. Okay, and there's a question mark in there somewhere too. I think that's 3F. Okay, there's only like 3 things you got to learn to translate on a URL. This is an encoded query because you don't want to confuse these characters, these equals and ampersands and question marks, with these. This is the actual part that's running it. So your browser needs to be able to tell the difference between what's a parameter to the next application or the next page, in this case is nav2.do. Well, they came along here and said, all I did is change sysparm fixed query to sysparm query, put that in a new browser tab, and it shows all the records. What's going on? It didn't query on that location. I said, look closely, friend. Look closely. You have 2 sysparm queries now. One says do nothing, no filter, which is over here, about column 70. And it just says sysparm equals. And the other one, you hard-coded in over here as sysparm query equals location is blah, blah, blah. I said, take this one out, and your life will be much happier. So go back to the browser, new tab, paste, and look, the filter's there, and you can pull this off. So sysparm query sets up what the filter is going to be. Sysparm fixed query sets up the same filter, but doesn't let you take anything off. And you can make these as complex as you want. You can have an and an or and whatever it is in there. You can put the 2 together if you wanted a fixed piece of this. You can put that in sysparm fixed query and then add the sysparm query to add additional destructible fields in there or destructible filters. You could put them both together and say, here's what you get all the time. Here's what you get that you could modify. So sysparm query, modifiable. Sysparm fixed query, not modifiable. Hope that made sense. Wanted to share that with you in case you haven't played around with sysparm fixed query. It is pretty darn useful. I've used it in a few cases where I don't want people to mess with my list. It is what it is, and I put it there for a reason. Also on my ideas list today, good question about the word commit. We use commit on update sets, and we use commits in Studio. Okay, so we've overloaded this term called commit. They said, is doing a commit in Studio the same thing as doing a commit in an update set? And I said, no, not exactly. When you're doing update sets, you're moving a set of changes, whether it's a new record, an update to an old record, deleting a record. You're moving those sets of changes from one instance to the other. And when you commit them, you're applying them to that instance. So if I had an application and my update set said, let's go add a new checkbox field, it's going to contain 2 or 3 entries. I retrieve that, I preview it, and you now have the ability to auto preview those update sets. And then finally, I commit it. That's applying it to that instance so that the new checkbox field shows up in production. It was in dev, now I commit it to test or production or whatever other instances you've got. That's the idea behind an update set commit. Source control commit, such as GitHub, is when you save your local changes. They're all queued up as you're making changes to an application in Studio. And if you've linked it to source control, there's a repository out there. When you commit your changes to source control, think of it just as a backup button. It's like, I want to take these changes and I want to save them out there in GitHub. That's all that commit does. It's a term that already existed in source control long before source control came along to ServiceNow. So we didn't change the term. People who've done traditional development with source control know that, they recognize that term. That's something that we're not going to mess with. So yes, it's an overloaded term, but the commit for source control is simply back up. Go save my work on that external repository so that I may roll back to that version. I may load that into a different instance. I may share it with the community, whatever it is. It's out there in my source control repository. And in case my instance blows up Maybe I use it all the time on the personal developer instance. I use it on just about every project that I've ever built has some sort of either GitHub or GitLab source control component to it, because I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years. And I may want to refer back to that as a good example. I might want to share it. I understand that GitHub links are coming to the share portal, so you don't have to share an update set. You could share GitHub. And if you watch for the upcoming developer newsletter, there's an article in there about a thing called GitHub Companion, which will let you start to socialize and basically open source your applications via GitHub. So if you're working on something, or you wanted to see the Jeopardy app, or you wanted to do something with the loaner request app, you could use GitHub Companion and make your changes and contribute back to that. So I haven't gone through all the details on that. I understand that's what it's for, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that and sharing it with you when I find out. So that's the difference between those. There was another question. What is the type field in sysui element? So sysui element is part of a hierarchy. When you look at a form, it starts with the table sys under UI underscore view. This view happens to be default because there's nothing listed there afterwards. But there are other views like sys popup. What should I display when this form shows up in a pop-up like this? Okay, that's sys popup, not necessarily for this particular form. So I've got different views, and they are referenced from the table sys under UI underscore view. Now, default actually has a name that is empty. It has no name. Okay, don't call it default, or you'll have a default view called default view, or you'll have another view called default view that conflicts with the actual default view. I know, it's terribly confusing. The other thing I think is interesting about this record is if you look closely at the URL, this is a rare exception. The sysID of this record is not a 32-bit hex number or 32 character. The sysID is actually default space view. Like, don't ask me where that came from, but not all sysids are created equal. Right? That's something weird about that. In this default view is a related list of sections. Now the sections, if you're looking at a form, this top one is a main section. This bottom one is section 1. This is section 0, excuse me. So this top part right up here is called section 0. This is section 1, this is section 2, and you can address these by name. So when people say tabs, I don't like that term because the interface is tabbed. You can have tabbed sections and you can have tabbed related lists. This doesn't have them because there's only one related list. So when somebody say, go to this tab, like, you're talking about section or tab? So I like to refer them as sections or tabs, and you can actually use the cog to untab your interface, in which case tabs doesn't make any sense, but you can still refer to sections and related lists. Okay, that's aside. So section 0, section 1, section 2, those are stored in the table sysui section or form sections. And you can see in here it's listed by table. So views don't apply to tables. Views are simply defined as like a parent class, if you wish. And if I look for whatever that one, we'll take that exact example. Come on. This was on which table? SysUI module, if I remember right. I copied that. Did I delete it? Yes. Maybe it's still in the buffer. It's in SysUI view. That's not SysUI view. That's not what I wanted. Copy the wrong URL. Copy that URL. It is sysapp module. I always get those backwards. Sysapp module is here. So I can look by table equals sysapp module. There should be a default view for sysapp module. There should be a default view for almost every table. And it says, yes, I have 3 sections. The untitled one, and if I like, I can even show what the number is in here. I thought it was order. Maybe I don't see it. Okay, never mind. So sysui view, sysui section. If I open up one of those, the top section contains elements. This is the table they were talking about. And there is a type field in here. Now, just glancing at this, you can kind of guess that the type is for special stuff. If I look at any one of those records, I can see type dot begin split. This is read only because I'm not in this scope, but you get the idea. What is the type for? For normal fields, it's empty. It just says, hey, you're a normal field. I don't need to keep track of anything. But there are other things you can do with this. And that is, just for fun, I'm going to go to global, just so I can start looking at more of the options on here. Goodbye, CLS 528. Let's open up one of those records. And it says, I could be a split, a begin split, and end split. Those are the form formatters. When you see the two-column layout, you need to know where to start a two-column layout, where to jump from right to left or left to right, and where to end that so you could go back to full width. And these appear, could be multiple times in a section, depending on how you've got that layout. This is simply the data that keeps track of your form layout in the SysUI element. Now, there's another one called formatter. Formatters are used when you place a UI macro onto the screen. I have one on my Jeopardy app, and I wanted to put a macro in there to show some custom formatting. It does a checklist. That's all it does. Oop, get the right password in there. Type the right password. Funny how you can always feel the wrong password in your fingers, right? Hey, Chuck, you need to give the community folks a hard time. Either the level field needs to grow or you've been demoted. Not sure what you're pointing to there, but let's go look at a Jeopardy game record real quick. And I will show you an example of a formatter. Here's the one we played last night at the Phoenix Developer Meetup. Congratulations to Chris for winning. This is a formatter. Okay? I want special text, special stuff in here. And I use a UI macro to create that content. Jelly programming, high-level skill. If you're not ready for it, don't do it. And I said now to place that macro on there, I use a formatter. So in my application, I first create the UI macro, and that is called Jeopardy something. Sure, if I sort by updated date, I will see it, but I don't. So let's look for anything that contains Jeopardy. There should be only one. And of course it doesn't. Oh, no fun. Let's go here. Application Jeopardy. Game verification. Terrible name. All right. And in here is the ugly code. There's some CSS, there's some HTML, there's some JavaScript that runs some script include stuff, and then there's the HTML part of rendering that. Not the most complex UI macro, but it doesn't render on the form until you associate it or link it to a formatter. Sorry, my mouse is getting stuck. Might be time to charge that battery. So the job of the formatter under System UI Formatters is to associate those two together. And I say, when you see a record on this table, come on, open it up. I want to place this on a form. I want to make this available. You've seen formatters before. In fact, I bet you've used formatters before. Slow browser, take a drink. And the place they show up. Wow, always when you're doing a demo, right? So let's go to a different instance. We'll go to my personal developer instance. When you go to configure form layout, or even available in configure form design, your formatters are down here. Annotation is a formatter. Chart is a formatter. Activities is a formatter. Ratings. These are the formatters underneath the fields, but before the embedded lists. SysUI section formatter. Okay, there's different formatters in here. When you define a formatter on that table, it becomes available in the form layout list. So that's what that field is all about. It's simply saying, you have a formatter here. I better go look up what formatter it is because it's not a regular field. It is a formatter. There we are. So this is the name as it will appear in the list collector. Don't say slash bucket. This is the name of the formatter. That's my UI macro. This is the table I want to make it available to. It is a formatter. I've never used component. I don't even know what that's for. And that's really what it is. So view a UI macro, you can jump right to the UI macro for that once it's defined. So how do you get custom text from a UI macro onto a form? It's a formatter. That's what that does. So that's that. What is that type field? It's to define this is something other than a regular field. And one of them is a formatter, and that's about it. We already talked about multi-text display and new table I learned this last week. SC item produced record. And I think this has come up on this stream, if not somewhere else in the community. How do you know what records were produced by a record producer? I know that sounds a bit meta, but it's an actual thing. You can go to SC item produced record. Now here's my question of the day. It says, here's the producer, the record producer that produced it, and here's the output record and the task type. What happens if you try this without a task? So before the show started, I created one in the safety issue table, running a little long, but hey, it's the only show of the week, so you get a little extra time. What if I took my CLS application, I go back to CLS 528, and in Studio, let's get rid of that, but I go to my person record, and I want to create a new person. Down here, I have add to service catalog, which is going to create me a record producer. Add a new person to CLS 528. Category, I'll put this in Can We Help You? Because I always stick my demo stuff in there. And I'm going to add name and age. That's really all I need. Save and open, and it's made a record producer. I want to know what shows up in that table if it's not a task. That's my only curiosity today. Well, my first curiosity of the day that I want to answer. And up comes a preview that says, that wasn't very helpful. Why didn't it allow me to preview the item? It just kind of came up there. Name and age. Great, that's what it will look like in the catalog. Name, Chuck Tomasi, age, TBD. Submit that, and it brings me to the form with the name and the age is an integer, so it really didn't like that. We'll say I'm 123 because that's how old I feel today. And it saves that record. So what is now in this table? Refresh the list. And I have, let's say, or sort it this way. Add a new person. Because there's this task and task type field, apparently it doesn't fill them in because it's not a task. So if you use a record producer on a non-task table, you really don't get to go to that record. Not very friendly. I would have made this a document field. That's a bit rude, but you get the idea that you can go to. Most of the time I do this on task type, fields that are, or tables that are extended from task. So when your reply was visible, you show as level 1. You must be looking at the here, like forum level 5. There's different levels depending on what forum you're in. So this is posted in, if you're talking about the community, this is in the developer community. Okay, and the developer community has, each sub-community has its own ranking. So they don't show the leaderboard on here, but I can tell from my profile that even though I have a total aggregate of 230-some thousand points, that's spread out over a number of things. Most of it is in developer, platform, and I think service management, I forget. But as you go out into some of these other communities, you'll see the ranking is pretty pathetic. It's like 1. Because I've only answered a few questions in there. And there are probably more subject matter experts there. That's a little bit about the inside of the community. All right, I have kept you way longer than I intended, but I answered all the questions and I got to all the content, and I appreciate you sticking around for all that. Thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful day. If you learned something, don't forget, put a like on that video, or helpful on the community article, the blog post that's going to come out in just a few minutes. I will talk to you real soon. Make sure that if you do learn something, share it, and you will be helpful. Until next time, thanks for joining me, and I will talk to you again real soon. Play that music.